Welcome. We back again.
Yes, we are.
Bettermindz Interrupting.
And Brown Girl Interrupting.
And so we're with Maria and lovely T. And what's our topic today?
Ooh, I'm excited about this one. We're talking about boundaries.
Boundaries. Ooh, but I'm hearing that boundaries can be helpful and harmful.
I think that if they're done right, and if we really understand how we're setting them, boundaries can be liberation.
Agreed.
So how do we get there?
There we go. How do we get there?
You know she got all the information.
How do we get there? Of course, with the help of Maria. Okay, so how do we get there? Well, it's safe to say that we operate according to our characteristics, our attitudes. And attitudes are normally born out of the beliefs we have in ourselves, our society, and also our surroundings. So if we're setting boundaries shouldn't be what limits you, right? Boundaries shouldn't be rules, more like a safety net. If I jump, bam, I bounce on the safety net, I'm still safe. It was just the safety net was the boundary, but it was there so I wouldn't go totally hit the ground. Just a little, and I bounce back up.
So letting go with faith.
Yes.
Then I'm gonna bounce right back up.
There you go. That's what it is.
Because I got boundaries.
That's right.
Alright.
So, we would like to show and kind of give you some background information on what setting healthy boundaries look like, what they are, give you some details. We're going in the trenches again. In the trenches. We stay in these trenches, but we gotta learn.
We gotta get into the trenches to get out of the trenches. Gotta know what got us in there in the first place, right?
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
Okay, so in order for us to make healthy boundaries, we have to operate from a healthy attitude. Is that safe to say? We have to be mature to make healthy decisions. So we're going to touch bases on what some characteristics when setting boundaries can do for you. Right?
So I'm gonna step back for a second. You said we have to be mature to set those boundaries.
Correct.
What does that mean to be mature to set boundaries? Like, what's the difference between being mature and immature when I'm setting my boundaries?
What maturity looks like is taking responsibility, owning up, and knowing the truth. That's the reality of maturity, the facts of maturity.
Oh, we stepping back into reality versus perception.
That's right.
So my maturity comes with having an understanding of what's real and what's perceived.
Exactly. And how do where do our perceptions come from again?
Assumptions.
Based off of
Society, emotions,
past experiences, what we were taught when we were younger, our morals, our faith, it's all based on that.
But they take us down a path where we are not thinking factually about the reality of what we exist in. And if we're making boundaries, that is dangerous. Perception can be dangerous to be able to actually have healthy boundaries. That's what I'm hearing you say.
This is true.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about this maturity. What else do I need to look at and think about when I'm having mature boundaries?
Well, when you think of a mature person, we're going to put two people in a room, a mature person and an immature person. When you think of an immature person, what is the characteristics?
Probably impulsiveness. Immature people sometimes want to control the things around them. Immature people are often very emotional rather than rational. I think immaturity comes from ego too sometimes, right? So
Agreed.
the higher your ego is, you're actually less mature.
Agreed.
Okay?
Agreed.
So that's what I've come up with. What else can you add to that I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Now, an immature person operates off of denial. Because if you are in the constant state of denial, how can you face truth? How can you be responsible enough to face these truths? How can you know that you're in a mindset that is helping you to grow versus staying in your comfort zone than with that fixed mindset?
So what I'm hearing you say is that immaturity comes from that mindset of denial. And denial, really, in this situation, what we're talking about is denying my ownership in things. Denying that I'm responsible for things. Denying that I'm culpable for things.
So, with you saying that, you just went into one characteristic of a mindset of setting a boundary. She went into responsible versus irresponsible.
So tell me more, because so when I'm setting my boundaries, it's the mindset that I'm in. One is I've got to be responsible rather than irresponsible. What are some other mindsets I need to have?
Okay, so not to run you through them, but after the responsible and irresponsible, we have humility versus arrogance and pride. You touched on that a little bit just a while ago.
Ego. That's the ego. Ego doesn't allow us to accept responsibility.
It doesn't.
It's kind of tied into responsibility.
Which makes you immature.
It sure does.
If you can't accept responsibility, you're immature, period. That means you don't want to own up to nothing wrong that you did. That's not cool.
You can't grow like that.
No, there's no growth with that. So how can you set a healthy boundary with an immature mindset? But you know what? There's some more. There's some more mindsets that we gotta go over.
They're a growth mindset.
There are. But before that, before we get to the growth, because there's some other ones we gotta hit. If you have a slow to anger mindset versus a quick to anger mindset, which you touched on as well. Impulsiveness,
Emotional.
it's not gonna work. It's not gonna happen. It's just not. Okay, so think about it. When you're slow to anger, that means you're the type of person that stop, you think about it, and you do a scientific hypothesis on it. shall you say? You take it through the steps. Okay, this happened and it made me mad. Why? Oh, it stemmed back to this situation and I see why I got mad. So now that I know this happens every time someone does this, I know how to control it and not get mad.
So, slow to anger is really a way to kind of diagnose what's happening. And I think we just went right back to self-awareness.
There you go. Yes, we did.
I got a
Yes,
question.
we did. Oh, question.
Audience question, yeah.
If you slow to anger, right? Ain't that also learning something about yourself?
Yes.
Your own personal boundaries with yourself?
Yes. Yes. That's why I said it allows you to think and it allows you to be like, I don't like when this happens. Why? What is it about it? Why? So when it does happen, how can I control it and not make a big blowout of it and make a better outcome of this situation?
So what I'm slowing down to do is actually listen to myself. And that can be a lot of things, because I have to listen to my body.
Correct. Right.
My body, when I get angry, I can feel it in my body. Right?
Feel those
Like
vibrations.
I feel that tensing.
The heat.
Oh, those
You
things
hot?
are-
You think you a menopause or something? You know,
You're hot. You're hot. You know, your heart is pumping, right? So when I start to feel that and really think about how I'm feeling, I naturally am slowing down because I'm paying attention to my body and
That's
know
right.
what's happening outside.
Exactly. You took yourself out of your body and put it in front of you and tell him what's going on. What happened? Why are you mad? What can I do to not showcase anger or not to be impulsive so that I can control the situation better?
And then I realize why I'm upset.
And
So I know where I'm going to put my boundaries.
That's right. And you will be responsible enough to make mature boundaries.
So, if I'm hearing you right, there's levels of this maturity.
Talk to me.
The first one is I just have to have the mature mindset to understand the boundaries that I need.
Yes.
But then I need to make mature boundaries. That's a different thing than what we're talking about, though, right? Can you tell me more?
Maybe.
Okay,
Maybe.
maybe.
You know, if you're in the need of some.
I think I'd like to know. Yes.
Okay, so you touch base on slowing down to think, right? Right? So that you can respond appropriately, or that you can become self-aware of the situation, right? And so the boundary will come up helpful. Let's flip this though. Let's say you was quick to anger, so that you can see why it's better to be slow to anger.
Oh, I'm familiar with quick anger.
Oh, okay.
So like, that isn't unfamiliar. I could go there.
Okay. So when you're quick to anger, and this is something that my mentor quoted. We can agree that self-awareness breeds self-management, and self-management influences the health and stability of our social engagement.
So I'm able to manage myself by knowing and understanding myself enough and making decisions based on what I know and understand about myself.
Correct. Right? Okay. So when we're quick to anger, just know that you're in defensive mode. That's a defensive mechanism.
Yeah.
So when you're acting in that immature mindset, and you're quick to anger, then that leaves no room for growth. Because you're defending the negativeness aspect of whatever it is you're not trying to take responsibility for.
So I'm being reactive, not proactive. And reactive is all about those emotions.
And being irresponsible.
And again, oftentimes doesn't help me to make the right boundaries, because reactive is just defensiveness, not taking ownership, being irrational.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So that's pretty much the slow to anger versus the quick to anger. Mature or immature? What you think on that?
I think that what it sounds like is just being able to slow down and listen to my body and my mind and take stock of what's going on around me. I'm already in a better mindset to make healthier boundaries.
I love it.
That's real helpful. Okay.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so.
Well, I love it because I'm learning how to make some good boundaries.
That's great. Okay, so check this out. The next category, promoters of unity versus promoters of disunity.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, so if you're working with a mindset of promoter of unity, that means there's no judgment there. You're not judging anything. It don't matter the race of a person, the color of something, the size of anything, the taste of nothing. You're a non-judgmental person when you're working in this mindset, because you think of what? Keyword, unity. Unity is togetherness. So if you operate off of that mindset, you're going to create boundaries that not just work for you, but work for you and the person you have to create that boundary with.
So, unity versus disunity? Disunity, right? I'm hearing you talking about the difference of how we place value. So judgment is value.
Right.
I'm valuing one thing and devaluing another. So my boundaries to be helpful and healthy boundaries can't have value placed on them. So they might not be the same boundaries as someone else, but that doesn't make them right or wrong.
Correct.
They're just my boundaries.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. But although they're your boundaries, it can still be helpful for the other person too. Because your boundary is for both of y'all. It's a unity thing. That means this person not only know of the boundary, but it helps both of y'all connect, or it helps the situation to connect and be able to still move forward.
So it's like symbiotic. We're working with each other.
That's right.
Okay.
Give or take. It's a marriage. No matter what situation it is, you give or take. What Pop said, you win some and you lose some.
But you leave.
Some.
But you live. You live to see another day. You know, so when you work with that mindset, you're going to set a helpful boundary. Now, if you're a promoter of disunity, let's talk about that. Oh, I can't stand that group of people because they all smell like garlic.
I mean, I've been around some people who smell like garlic. It's not the best.
Okay, so I'm just saying, just because you're a vampire and you can't go by garlic, you You know what I'm saying? But no. If you promote segregation, no matter what it is, it don't have to be a race. It can be anything. If you promote segregation because this person has short hair, or this person has locks, or this person has long hair, or this person here is blonde, or this person, any kind of segregation, that's disunity. If you operate from a judgmental mindset, you're not going to set healthy boundaries, because your boundaries will look like stay away from them people because they smell like garlic.
So there's a value to it.
Yeah.
You're looking down on something.
There you go. Judgment.
You know, it's funny because I was thinking, to me, this reminds me of some of the challenges of the vaccines versus the not vaccinated people. And the boundaries, I think that what you'd like to hope is that people who want to get the vaccine will go and get the vaccine.
Yeah.
And that's where their boundary is.
Right.
And if you don't want to get the vaccine, you respect that someone doesn't want to get the vaccine.
Right.
But I don't think that's where the boundaries are. I think people have a judgment on it. And it's when you talk about segregation, I'm like, there's a segregation right there, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's the have the vaccines and the have not vaccines. And like,
This is where the shaming come in.
right. And the shaming. That's a different level of judgment.
We were told not to shame in the beginning when the vaccine and stuff came. We were told not to shame people. I just wanted to make that a point.
Yeah. And it's going to happen. Because I get questioned, have you got the vaccine yet? Like, that's real important to people. How about ask me, are you healthy? Are you energized today? Are you hungry? Can I fix you something? No. Did you get vaccinated?
So it leads to that value demon, right? Like so, and then it becomes problematic because our boundaries are creating division.
So with that, how do you set a healthy boundary on that?
How do I set it up with them?
How would you? With the
With the vaccine. So what I think I have done, whether or not it's successful, I guess we'll have to see, right? Is that I have made it very clear to, like, so for example, I work in, an office with about 8 people.
Right.
Several of them are older and have other pre-existing conditions that just make them a little bit more COVID fearful.
Right.
So I know where their mindsets are. And in respect of that mindset, my boundary is that what I'm going to say to you is, I'm not getting vaccinated, and here's all my reasons why I'm not getting vaccinated, but I respect that you're getting vaccinated, and all I'm asking you to do is respect that I'm not.
Right.
And if anything that I'm doing makes you uncomfortable in that, just let me know.
Right. Exactly.
And then we can respect each other's boundaries.
Shouldn't, because I thought with the multiple religions that we have, like the Amish community, Muslim community, there's the what do you call them? Sikh? I don't know what you call them. I don't know how to pronounce it here.
Oh, Sikh.
Sikh, right? Like,
Yeah.
they don't mess with the vaccinations. You know what I'm saying? And especially the Amish people, like their boundary is that they don't. In fact, their boundary is they don't believe anything that comes on the television at all.
Yeah.
So, where is the government's boundary meeting their boundaries at? Like, you can't force those groups to do it because you have a law and a treaty that prevents you from interfering with that.
That's correct. And so
That too is a boundary.
Yes. And
Well,
I think
that's
so
a
we're
boundary
going down a
infiltrator.
whole other way. That's
Okay,
systemic
alright.
boundaries,
Alright,
right?
let me
It's
just-
not that I respect it.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah,
systemic boundaries. We're gonna refocus ourselves.
Yeah, that's what
into
my bad, y'all. My bad.
individual boundaries.
yes, but
But we exist in a system.
I
So
got
we
you.
gotta navigate that too. That might be
Yeah.
podcast number 3.
Okay.
Right?
so we're
Next time.
gonna that's a deep conversation.
Yeah.
We're gonna take that to the next
Don't bring us backtracking. So now we got the judgment.
Okay, so
what's the next?
so now that we figured out the unity and disunity, and remember, if you don't take one thing from this part, take that unity, a person that is inclined with unity is more focused on building their character. Character building. Then a disunity, then someone that's not caring about, because if you're in a disunity state, then you don't care about your characteristics, you don't care how people perceive you, and that's not always a good thing. Because you'll start acting reckless. Yeah. So, the next one. You operate from a mindset of growth seeking versus seeking pleasure.
Okay, I know growth seeking. I want to grow. What does seeking pleasure have to do with a negative boundary?
Okay.
Or an unhelpful boundary?
I'm gonna tell you what. And guess what? Guess what else goes with pleasure? Before I go deep.
Pleasure is good, I thought.
Yes. Guess what else does? Happiness. Seeking pleasure and seeking happiness. How is that negative?
Is it the seeking part?
It's the seeking part. I'm gonna hit you. Okay, pleasure, the definition of pleasure is an instant feeling, right? So, or a short moment, right? And this pleasure is an experience that comes and goes. That's what pleasure is. It's a moment of experience that comes and goes, right? It's instant. Growth is a process. So growth is a process, right? And growth seeking process, seeking pleasure or happiness, instant. We don't want to operate on an instant mindset. We want to operate on a process. We want to take steps.
And so, growth seeking versus pleasure, seeking pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the idea of being comfortable with discomfort. So I got to be able to be uncomfortable to grow, instead of the need for comfort all the time to stay stagnant.
That's right. Because when you're uncomfortable, you're proactive. Because you're taking steps to get comfortable. You're taking steps to that result. You know what the end result is? But because you take pride in what you're doing, your end result, you're going to really love the experience of the process. Now, when you're just seeking,
yourself to grow.
that's right. Now, when you're just seeking pleasure or happiness, this is instant. You're going to constantly be seeking it. You're going to constantly be on a look, you're just going to be looking for it.
Kind of like a high.
It is. It's a high. It's an addiction. It's all of those.
Yeah, it is. Pleasure seeking is an addiction, right?
Because-
it's a high you're always trying to get again.
Because if you constantly seek pleasure, then it's never not enough.
Well, pleasure is a sensation, so it wouldn't be the pleasure, it would be the sensation of the pleasure. Wouldn't that be the high?
Well, when we're talking about the mindset, we're not talking about touch. We're just talking about the thoughts and the thinking.
No, yeah, that's what I mean.
So,
It's
if pleasure. Go ahead.
Is it the way that we feel comfortable in it? Not as much that, like what you're saying,
No,
it's not
a
the
feeling.
that
Yeah.
it's the comfort level that then,
Of the seeking.
right.
Right. So, I'm gonna put it like this. If you seek pleasure, it's not enough. If you seek growth, it's not the end result you crave. It's the experience, like I explained earlier. Those who seek growth are those who step out of the victim mindset and take responsibility for the direction their life takes. Their thinking patterns, belief, and behaviors. They take responsibility of those.
That's responsibility.
So that's growth seeking. But when you're seeking pleasure, it's never not enough. You're going to always constantly seek it because pleasure is an instant and short moment of an experience that comes and goes. Are we here? Do I gotta do? Do I gotta get some glue and connect it? Put us together?
I think we got
We
it,
did?
right? We got it.
I didn't
We
lose
got it.
nobody, right?
No, you got it.
No, we're talking about the idea of discomfort as a good thing because it helps you challenge yourself and grow.
Right.
And comfort in this case of getting too comfortable with things is limiting.
Right.
Doesn't allow you to grow.
Right.
And you stay in a place where you're always just trying to stay comfortable for as long as you can.
Right.
Sounds a little bit also like you want to control the external.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
Because discomfort is allowing me to let go, and I gotta allow whatever's outside of me to be present, and it's okay.
Right.
Because I'm working through it.
Right.
But with comfort, I need to control what's outside of me so that I always feel safe and comfortable.
I think we got it. I think we got it. So when we're dealing with faith and those that operate without faith, where does that take?
Is faith letting that idea of letting go and not wanting to have control over outcomes?
Yes, and faith is also your belief system. It's also what you think is true to you. That's, because if you're a religious person, you can have a mindset of a religious person. If you are a atheist, you can have a mindset of an atheist. But whatever your faith is, that is your mindset. Okay? Now, without faith, we live in a state of apathy. We have lack of interest. We're not interested in nothing. That's without faith. And we also live in a state of passivity, where it's, I'll get used to it, whatever. I don't like it, but whatever, I'll get used to it. You're forcing yourself to get used to something you don't like. That's living in a state without faith, right? So, what kind of boundaries can you set with a mindset like that?
If you don't have faith?
And again, faith is not religion. Faith is not,
Faith is grounding.
yes.
So having faith as a mindset is having a grounding, having something to hold on to. And without something to hold on to, I can slip into an apathy of not caring and acquiescing and accepting things that are against maybe like my deep core values because I've given up. Now, I will say, and I think it's important to say when we think about boundaries, is that like you said, it's a partnership,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to have that unity.
Mm-hmm.
There are some relationships where you can set a lot of these boundaries and be on the right side of it, but if the other person
Right.
is not, no matter what, changing or creating any of that space for those boundaries, it can be really damaging.
It could be damaging and harmful. That's why it's good to know what mindset you operate from when you're setting your boundaries. Because you don't want to set harmful boundaries. You want to set boundaries that can help you and everything else you go against. And I'm not saying go against in a negative way, but it can help you in a relationship with your mom, your father, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, girlfriend. It can help you with your work situation, your colleagues and stuff like that. It can help you with whatever there is in front of you. And this is why you have to have a mature mind to make responsible boundaries that will help us all. Not just you. We ain't gonna be selfish. You ain't gotta be selfish. We in this world together. Unity. Unity. Look, we got 3 different ones. See you know? But that is a good way to set a boundary. Learning your mindset. So let's go to the category of decisiveness and double-mindedness, which is also indecisiveness. Which one to start with?
Well, tell me a little bit more about double-mindedness. I think decisiveness is I know my decisions. I know why I'm making them.
That's right.
But what does it mean to be double-minded?
Okay, so you a Gemini to yourself. Sorry, Jimmy, I love you.
I was married
But you
to
know,
one of those.
2 faces. Y'all got 2 faces for a reason. I love you though, but you got 2 faces for a reason. So, if we operate off of a indecisive mindset, that means we're never sure about nothing. So if you're never sure about nothing, how are you going to make a boundary?
Well, I think it sounds like what ends up happening maybe is that we try to control the things around us.
I don't know.
So that double-mindedness, I'm looking for language, that double-mindedness kind of goes into having like that idea of having double standards, because I need to control things. So I have certain boundaries for myself, or I put those boundaries on someone else, but I don't have them for myself. It's the other way, right? I put those boundaries on someone else, but I don't have them for myself.
Right.
So I have double standards.
Right.
Because I'm really just trying to control things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I'm indecisive.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really make a decision. So if I just control everything, I don't have to make a decision.
There you go. And out of control. And you do have those that is on the opposite end of that. That don't want to make no decisions and just you control it.
So then you're putting your life in someone else's hands.
Pretty much.
Because you don't want to be bothered.
I don't know. I don't know. Depends on that mindset of that person. That's a deep and another topic right there.
Yeah, I think there's layers to that.
Yeah.
It's gotta be nuanced.
Big layers. So, because indecisive people are unsure of their motives and what they stand for, they're pretty much going to make boundaries that bounce around. yo-yo. They pretty much gonna, these are the ones that set up things with you and then turn around and change their minds. And then turn around and want to set back up with you and then change their mind. No, that's indecisiveness. You can't operate in that mindset. I don't care who you are. Because you're going to always keep failing. And if you fail all the time, that puts you back into going in being safe. Going back to the safe measure. I don't think we hit that yet. But we're going to hit that. So.
Sounds like there's a lot of toxicity in that.
It is. It is. An indecisive person can, yeah, that's a lot of toxic.
Oh, I love the Gemini's line.
Well, she said it, not me.
Sorry, I don't have the love for Gemini's. I live with one and I know.
Judgment.
Oh, look, so that was judgment.
So we can't set a boundary off of that, okay? No boundary.
But look, we are fallible and not perfect. As long as I don't act on that, it's okay.
Yeah, we won't act on it.
Okay. There's some judgment going on here. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
There's no judgment.
Let's go judgment. We'll get deeper. Let's get deeper. Sorry. Look, I am not perfect, and I am on this soul searching journey. So I'm with y'all at the same time.
We're learning.
I get it.
We're all learning. That's why we here. We're learning together. I'm nowhere near perfect. Right? So that's what we're here for.
The good thing about boundaries is you can redraw them, right? Like you can re-examine.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get to that later, right?
Yes.
We can change our boundaries when we have more knowledge and understanding.
And that's a good thing. You can change your boundaries. As a matter of fact, boundaries do change when you evolve. When you evolve, your boundaries change. When you grow, your boundaries change. So, if you have a mindset that is ruled by facts versus a mindset that is governed by feelings, can you tell me which one is not a healthy boundary?
Oh, well, that goes back to our first conversation, right? On the idea of immature ways to think about things and behavior. So, if I'm not being a rational thinker, if I'm not slowing down and I'm just responding with feelings, that's an unhealthy place to be. Doesn't mean you can't have emotion, it just means your emotions don't drive your actions. I think that's important to recognize, because it's not saying you don't have emotions.
Right.
It's saying emotions don't drive
Right.
the actions.
Right. And that's a big one. Because a lot of people operate by feelings. I used to be that person. Like, and feelings meaning not crying about everything, but just taking everything too critical. Like, it's not even that deep. Just being too critical of the person criticizing me. So, for example, if you would say something about me that I didn't like, I would be critical of them, but also be worse criticizing me on what they criticize me on.
So, it can also play out in being defensiveness.
Defensiveness.
Someone else.
Yes.
But also an internalized belief of putting yourself down.
Right.
So
you
you're
can turn it.
there's expressing the emotion and then there's internalizing the emotion.
Right. And we don't want to operate in that mindset. That's terrible. Things blow out. So, a life ruled by facts is one that is stable and constant. Can you agree Like if you went throughout life based off facts, meaning you have to see it in order to believe it. I have to hear it in order to say someone said it. I'm not off no hearsay, she say. I'm not off no just believe in faith. I need to see it. I'm not off no, like, I'm really governed by facts. If the government said something, I need some facts to back that up. Like, that's what I rule my mindset. It's not a bad place to operate.
No.
Now, if I operate governed by feelings, as we said, we can be a little too emotional, we can bite back hard, or not backbite, but either way, both circumstances is bad. Responding and not responding, which goes into internalizing.
So I never irrational thinker.
Gotta be a rational thinker.
I'm gonna use facts.
So, we have one more left. And this is a mindset that is driven by progress or a mindset that is driven by safety. Y'all don't know what that is.
So it's interesting because I think safety can be equated with comfort, but I think we're talking a little bit more extreme level of, because it's not just comfort, it's safety, which means I can feel unsafe if I don't have something. So how does that become a unhelpful way in terms of boundaries?
Okay, so how much progress in life can you get just by being in your comfort zone?
I mean, we're not growing, right?
You're not growing.
Okay.
So there's no progress. And the only way that you can grow is by getting out of your safe net zone. Just that's where the leap of faith comes, right? Gotta have faith, gotta have something to hold on to, right? So, when most people feel stress or pressure, they retreat back to their comfort zone and hide away from their responsibilities and the difficulties being thrown their way, right? Why? You wonder why? Because they are driven by security and being safe. It's that I know I should be doing this, but I'm scared. I'm comfortable here because I know the known, but I don't know the unknown over there. So I'm driven by safety. My boundary is going to be driven by safety, and that looks like I'm a real good yoga instructor, but I won't give you my yoga card because in my mind, I'm comfortable with people coming up to me and asking about it. So if I don't think you'll be interested because I'm giving it to you. So because my comfort zone is other people asking me, my boundary will be not handing out my cards. I'll wait for people to ask me and I'll know they're interested. That's not a helpful boundary because I'm stopping my own progress. You see what I'm saying? Like, I could get more clients just passing it out whether I know they're going to be interested or not. But I'm losing clients not passing it out because I feel like they should come to me. See what I'm saying? So if you operate in a comfort zone and you create a boundary, a safety boundary, it's not helpful for you. You lose progress. You don't gain progress.
So when a safety boundary is created by experiences, previous experiences, right? So I have felt unsafe from some of those previous experiences, and therefore I have to make sure not to go past these boundaries, because if I go past this, I will be unsafe again, and I don't want to venture into that uncharted, unfamiliar, uncertain territory of
Right.
unsafe.
Right. That's half of it, because you can also operate on never ever experiencing that and just have the fear of never ever experiencing it. You can operate on a safety net in that way too. But if your mindset is driven by progress, which is a process, you're gonna take steps. You're gonna grow. You're gonna enjoy that experience. So you're gonna make boundaries. And the boundaries they're no longer called boundaries anymore. These are your steps. Because we're making progress now.
With the process.
With a process.
Knowing that it's not right away and immediate.
Exactly.
It takes time.
So you gotta slow it down. The
It's all
more
connected, isn't it? Like, I feel like we keep going back and forth between all these different pieces.
But
because
they're all connected.
together.
Yes. And the moral of this is, in order to go ahead, set healthy, helpful boundaries. I think that if we can take our time, think about it, we can create a great process.
I like it. Boundaries can be liberation then.
Agreed. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with a segment that you should enjoy. All right. So now that we're back, let's get into how we could set up boundaries. Let's get into a scenario, and let's see how we can set healthy boundaries. You got a scenario for us?
So, I found a real life situation. I have a 20-year-old son, and I have struggled with setting boundaries with him. So, from the time he was 19, I think his 19th birthday, I had set a boundary and gave him the gift of freedom and told him he couldn't live with me anymore on his birthday. It was literally, I said, I'm giving you the gift of freedom. You can't live here anymore because it's not working out. And I didn't follow through with that boundary because he did not leave. He did not leave. He stayed, and as he stayed, his behaviors just got worse and worse. And the stuff that I was, I was struggling with how to clearly really make the boundaries that he wasn't going to step over. And for me, it required re-examining them.
Okay. I had a similar situation.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the mothers and their boys, but I stuck to my boundary, and I actually put my son out. Only because I knew he had somewhere to go. But I had to give him his freedom passage. And I had to cut the ties. It was hard, but I had to cut it because we as mothers want our sons to grow up and be independent and not have to. And let me make this clear. Independent in the state of knowing how to take care of yourself. Okay? Not I'm an independent woman, I don't need no man, I'm an woman. Not that type of independence. That's another topic though. We gotta get to that.
Life skill independence.
There you go.
Life skills.
Life skills independence. So, in order for me to make him become proactive, I had to put up a barrier and be firm and let him know it's time for you to grow your wings outside of this house.
So we had a similar situation,
Mm-hmm.
but it's interesting. So your boundary worked.
Mm-hmm.
My boundary at first didn't work, and part of that is because I kept moving it back. And I think also the other part is that I didn't fully know why I had my boundary. So I think when it first started on his birthday, when I didn't get to him, it was just based on the fact that he wasn't working and he wasn't in school.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, you don't have a plan. You can't just be hanging out here. You gotta find another place to live.
Which forces him to make a plan.
Should have forced him to make a plan.
Eventually.
In the ideal world, it didn't solidly. It did not force him to make a plan. He stayed, and he didn't get a job. We got a job, he got a job, and he lost a job, and it's complicated. Nothing consistent. He definitely wasn't in school. But what he added on, which I didn't understand, I think the first time I made the boundary, because it was present, but I didn't recognize its presence, was that he was disrespectful to me. He questioned not only my authority, he questioned my parenting with my 4-year-old. He devalued my responsibilities of working and how hard I worked and minimized it. And so when I finally was able to set the real boundary that did change my circumstance, because you know what the truth is? It might not change him, and I don't have control over whether it's going to change him.
You know.
But what I have control over is what's going to make a healthy boundary for me. And that was when I realized, after working at home and running around all day, taking care of a toddler while balancing a job, while cleaning my house in between things, and that was the problem too. Because I shouldn't be cleaning up a 20-year-old's plates. I should not have to see dirty dishes when I come down for a break from my job. So
Exactly.
I started to have to figure out what is it that's bothering me and what the core of it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was living with my ex again. It was all the same behaviors of my ex. Not working, sitting at home, watching me work my ass off, and then being judgmental and disrespectful all at the same time. And the difference in this boundary is I can create my own reality of what I wanted it to be. And that's when I made that boundary clear. I told him he had to get out. And I knew he had a place to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it was okay. And I stuck to the boundary.
That's right.
But when we make a boundary, you talked about this idea of it being a process.
Mm-hmm.
How is it a process for you with your son?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you how my process worked because my parents did it to me. So my process with all my children starts when they get in high school. I start to repeat the same thing. When you graduate from high school, you either gonna go to college. If you still plan on living in the same household as me and Dad, you either gonna go to college and you can still stay because you know you're working on your education. I'm all good. I'm gonna support you 100%. You can stay here until you finish your education. And if you don't have an interest in a degree, pick up a trade. I'm fine with that. But now we gotta save so that you can learn how to save money and get your own place. And you know, we're gonna teach you how to financially manage your money. Now, if you ain't doing either or none, you got to go. And that is my process, because in their minds, they heard it. So when I told my son that, he was like, for real, Mom? You was for real. Like, he wasn't even mad that I said it, because I groomed him to know that if you gonna do something, this what it is. But if you're not, this what it is. So that was my process of creating a healthy boundary, because when he didn't do those things, my boundary was, you gotta go.
So the difference with your boundary, it sounds like, I mean there were a lot of differences, but one of the differences that I heard was that you have that self-awareness proactively, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me it was reactive because I never had thought of it. I never even crossed my mind that my children wouldn't have direction at any point in their lives, and that I would have to put that boundary up. So it threw me off. And so often, the reason we put up boundaries is because something new has entered our space that we're not familiar with. That's a real thing that we have to deal with. You're lucky and fortunate that you knew, you self-aware, right? Your level of self-awareness was a lot higher than I was at that point. Because,
This is
but
what my
I
father
will
did.
say, my subsequent children have seen much stronger boundaries since, because I have learned from my first one.
That's good.
And for me, the process is I keep coming back to having to put that boundary out, because I'm a mom, you're a mom. We got soft hearts. We want our children to be okay. We want to love them. We want to just be able to love them without having strict boundaries.
Right.
But that can lead us to, and I remember we talked about this somewhere in our conversation, but that empathy we have leads us to push our boundaries back sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Being extra soft, but I know I shouldn't, but I'm so.
That is only with the boys.
Yeah, so I was going to get the father perspective. So that.
Because my mom did it to me. And I just think it was very, because I'm the oldest, and she was just like, you ain't going to school, you ain't working. There's one or two things you're doing. And then I would work. But if I lost the job, that's it. She just wasn't tolerating that. Because like you said with your son, she saw similar signs of my pops, back in the day pops. She was not having that. First of all, she didn't even like the idea of another adult being in the house without paying some kind of bills, because it shows like you're irresponsible, you haven't grown, and I taught you nothing. If you want to make me, your parent, look like a liar, get out.
I can understand all of that.
Yes,
But
we can
that's the
understand.
truth, and that's why you need those boundaries,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, so.
Get out.
Okay, now, so that aspect on what mom did with the son, boundaries. Did you set any boundaries? Like, was there any, or was it, this is what your mama said, was that your boundary? Like,
I had a whole different mindset, because by the time she wanted me out, I already wanted to get out. That was the difference between me and my other siblings. I was the very first one and the youngest one. Because I kind of seen the direction where it was going. Okay, she can't tolerate that. She doesn't tolerate this. She damn sure is not tolerating that. So before it all falls on me, I'm out. Because she already gave me a deadline, and I'm like, all right, well, before that deadline come, I'm out. And at the time I purposely wanted to, because, if something happened once I was gone, I didn't, whoever else stayed in the house got the back half of that, so. So I was different, I wanted to leave.
so what about, okay, so was there any boundaries with you and PJ? Like, as a father, pushing out.
Yeah, I told him. The funny thing is, I warned him before his mother did. Year ago. A year prior to, because I saw the end of the school year coming. I saw the last school year coming. So I said, look, you said you want to do this. I think what you should do, because that's how fathers do. We just reiterate what the mother said. I was like, now you need to do this and this before it's too late. So I warned him. He didn't see it coming. He didn't see it coming.
But he had no animosity behind it.
No, he didn't, because he knew what it was.
Because I groomed him from years of him knowing. Now, if it was just a out of the blue, okay, you just gonna put me out and then we didn't discuss it. No, I have conversations with my children. They know what they expect from their mom. So when I have an angry response, they know why. They know the deep issue to why. It wasn't that they messed something up, they know why.
But I think the girls are different with their boundaries, because with the girls, they already have their boundaries already, because once they get to a certain age, they already know they're gonna be gone doing their thing. So it's not really too, with the boys, you have to kind of groom them so they can learn their own kind of boundary. Because, it's like the maturity is different.
Yeah.
The maturity level of them is different, so.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's something different about the way males process information.
Yes.
So women don't need a lot of details to understand how something works. We also don't always need a roadmap. Boys tend to need all of those things, right? We need the details, we need the roadmap. I need to know how I'm going to get from point A to point B. Like, I need it broken down, and I need to be reminded often about what that broken down is, right? So I need mom to remind me, but I need dad to remind me too, right? And so there's I think it's complicated, and I think that's really the end of everything. And what we're saying, right, is that all of this, when you're creating boundaries, it's about knowing yourself and knowing the other person. But before you can even understand the other person, or even think that you have it, because you don't have any control over them, right?
Right.
Your boundaries are for you. And it's knowing who you are. It's knowing what you need and making those mature decisions when you're creating those boundaries to create and keep your peace.
That's right.
So, I like that, because if someone is in the work field, how could they set up a peaceful boundary with their other coworkers?
That's a good question.
There's always the coworkers you're around that, this one is gonna get on you because that's just them every time they come into work. Then you have this one that's gonna get on you because they just think because of their particular status that they have at the job. And then is there one that's kind of cool with you but not cool with you, that always try to get you to do stuff at lunch that you really don't want to do, but then you force yourself because you don't have that particular boundary. But how do you set the boundaries at a workplace but still keep it peaceful and not feel animosity?
So that's good that you,
right?
Yeah, you did. That's good that you brought that up. That goes to passivity. Because you say you force yourself to do it. So you're overlooking the fact that you don't want to do it, but to please somebody else, whatever, let me just get it out the way because I gotta do it. But the reality of it is, you don't have to get it out the way. You don't have to satisfy them. You don't. Because the focus of it is, I asked you to do something. And on your end, you respond. That person's supposed to take it and go. You shouldn't worry about how they got from it. Because right now, this is how you start to create that boundary. Now, if you don't create the boundary, that person gonna constantly come to you. It's gonna constantly go over. They may not know you don't like it. But because you constantly saying yes, and you don't create that boundary, they're gonna keep doing it.
Like the person that, you you ever had someone ask you something you didn't agree with, right? And because you didn't agree with it, like in your thought, that should be the end of it, right? Like, you know, I disagree, like that should be it. But you ever find it where the other person is, they're like, okay, that's fine if you disagree. But then they're still forcing you to agree with what their point is. Like they'll change up the whole segment and bring it back so you can agree with them. But like, it's like, so where's the boundary in that? Where if you like, okay, well enough is enough. And this is where I'm at with it. Or this is where I'm at with this particular subject. But
and
then you have, right, and you don't want to hear them, but then you have this pursuance of the other, like, okay, I get that, but this is why I said this, or this is why, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That right there, that goes with the humility versus the arrogance and the pride.
With the ego. Somebody said
the ego, yes.
Okay.
With the ego. That's more of, and this is where I say it's a way you disagree with people. And I learned this from my husband. And so he's a good guy. And so you don't, and I want to take this into this perspective. You don't disagree to disagree. We need to stop saying that. It's okay if someone don't go with what you go against. You can't disagree with what they say. So instead of disagreeing, to get your point across, if you feel different, I would like to add on. I would like to add to that. And then that person won't feel like you're disagreeing, but you will get your point out. They may not agree with you, but it's heard.
And you can, to disagree. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think it's a couple things, right? Like I think that there's a difference between that idea of disagreeing just to disagree is trying to control.
It goes to the control, yeah.
And that control from someone else can lead us to want to allow them to feel comfort over ourselves.
Right.
So I think that comes back to what you said before with the question about like you're moving your boundary for someone else, right? Because and we do that when we put someone else's comfort before our own. And there's different reasons, right?
Yeah.
There's different reasons. Like so, you know, I can say I did a lot with my ex because I had empathy for his childhood and traumas that he went through, and so his comfort was more important than mine because I knew I could handle things more than him. But we do it with coworkers too because we're avoiding that engagement or we're avoiding some kind of blow up or there's a hierarchy of like power, right? So there's different reasons.
Right.
And I think that comes back to like you gotta evaluate because there's no one way.
There's no one way. This is where the unity has to come in. There has to be a unity because when you create a boundary with unity, that same person that came to you and asked you to do something that you didn't want to do, when you made that boundary and it was a unity, one that both of y'all can step on the hey, at this time don't ask me to do this. I don't feel comfortable doing it. But prior, if you give me a heads up the day before where I can, process and get comfortable with doing this, that might work. Versus you throwing something on there, or asking me or trying to force or try to get your way with me. That's you setting your boundary. And one or two things gonna happen. They can accept it or not. And if they don't accept it, then guess what happens? They just don't approach you no more. So either way, you get some kind of satisfaction with your boundary, but you have to set it. One thing for sure, two things for certain. No one is a mind reader. They're psychics, but they can't read your mind if you don't allow them to. So I say that to say this. If you don't speak up, no one will know. If you don't open up, right, if you don't open up, no one will know. So you will continue. Yes, you will continue in that discomfort, allowing people to walk over your boundaries. You will always be in that place of passivity.
And it doesn't help you.
It doesn't. It makes you more angrier.
But our goal is to have boundaries for our liberation. And
Yes.
to do that, we gotta make them healthy.
That's right. And helpful.
That was a lot. That was
That was
That
a
was
lot.
good.
Good.
That was good.
really
I
good.
feel like I walked away understanding how to stand in my boundaries.
How to stand, how to set healthy boundaries, how to make a boundary for you and the situation or you and the other person. It's good when you have a calm mind. Having a calm mind means it's easy for you to work things out. It's like a fighter. You can't be a good fighter if you're angry. My husband can tell you about that.
So all of it comes back to self-awareness and control of ourselves, our minds, our thoughts, how we're processing and perceiving the world around us.
So, it's been lovely. It's been lovely?
It's been lovely tea.
It's been
and lovely
lovely.
tea, breaking it down with Andrew,
Yes.
deepening it up.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And you know I'm always interrupting.
Always interrupting.
Always interrupting.
Always. So, we'll see you again real soon, and we don't even know what the next topic is, but whatever it is.
It was on here. You guys said it was on. See?
It's on
That's why it was on
there.
here.
You'll know soon.
Peace out.